Who are the 15 greatest NBA players of all time? And in what order? We had our guys all make a list, and we have a consensus list. Look, I think you can make a case for Wilt or Bill Russell or Michael Jordan or LeBron for the top spot. But what about CBSSports.com? What does the consensus list look like? Here we go. All right, Michael Jordan comes in at 1, LeBron at 2, Kareem, 6 MVPs. That's the standard. He's at 3. Bill Russell, 11 titles in 13 years. Well, you say Jordan won 6 NBA Finals MVPs. They named the award after Bill Russell because he probably would have won it 9 or 10 times. He was also 21-0 in elimination games in his college and pro career. That's pretty good. Magic rounds out the top 5. Wilt at 6. I might sit here and pout for the rest of the entire segment because I'm absolutely offended that Wilt is not in the top 5. I mean, I pick a stat, any stat at all. The man averaged over 50 points a game one year. If he scored 50 in the last game of the year, his average went down. They said he scored too much, so he said, okay, I'll show you. And the next year led the league in assists as a center. And he averaged 23 rebounds a game for his career. There ain't 5 players better than Wilt. Shaq, Bird, Duncan, Kobe, on and on and on. What a great list. What a lot of fun. All right, Bill Ryder, Avery Johnson, here we go. Top 15. What are your highlights when you see this list? And then I'll get to what your biggest discrepancy or beef is with the list. But first, what stands out to you, Bill Ryder?
I think a couple things, EK. One, I mean, these things are hard and people disagree. And I think it's a pretty reasonable collection of 1 to 15. But 2, for me, there's no doubt. It's Jordan and LeBron in some order at the top. And after that, 3 to 11, you can make a case for every single guy on the CBS list who are 3 to 11 to be in the top 3 or the top 4. The level of separation, at least for me, is very, very, very small for all of those guys. Then 12, 13, 14, 15, I think you add some other names who are interesting. But you can make a strong case that Hakeem is a top 5 player and every name that came before him. And so the takeaway for me is there's 3 tiers. It's 1 and 2. It's 3 to 11. And that's the other guys who got on that list.
No Oscar Robertson in that second tier? Okay. See, I have a top 4 tier, and then I have a 5 to 12 tier. But we're not saying things that are radically different. Coach, you see the list. Before we get to your biggest discrepancy, what stood out to you?
Well, I think Tim Duncan at 9. Earlier, I talked a lot about Kobe Bryant at 10, but now I'm going to my teammate, Tim Duncan. There's no way in the world Tim Duncan needs to be at 9. I think Tim Duncan, who a lot of opposing coaches, folks in the media, a lot of players that he played against said that he's the best power forward to ever play the game. So if you're the best power forward to ever play the game, you probably should be in the top 7. Here's a guy that's won 5 championships, 3 times finals MVP, 2-time NBA regular season MVP. And also, he made the NBA all first and second defensive team 15 times in his career. So I just don't understand how Tim Duncan lands at number 9.
All right, look, here's what I'd say to follow up your point. If we did the all-time NBA team where we had a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, and a 5, and you had to play your position, Tim Duncan is the all-time 4. He's first team all-time NBA at the power forward in my opinion, if everybody has to play their natural position. Bill Ryder, your biggest beef with the list, just give me 15 seconds here.
Yeah, I mean, I think Larry Bird should be higher. A lot of that's influenced by the fact that LeBron James, once we had that conversation, put Bird higher than Magic. But I got to tell you, I'm with you guys on Tim Duncan, too. I know there's a lot of complaints about Kobe. If you look at the numbers, I think Duncan's a little bit better player than Kobe Bryant. But again, every one of these guys, you can make a case that they should be higher. I think Bird should be, and Duncan was certainly higher on my list as well.
Well done there, gentlemen. Now, Bill Ryder, you have the Geico 15-second statement. Be bold. What do you have?
Here's what it is. A guy not on the list, Kawhi Leonard, not only will make this list at some point when his career is over, but guys, he has the opportunity, especially if he leads the Clippers to a championship and becomes the only player in the history of the game to be a 3-time Finals MVP with 3 different teams. He could leap all the way as high as number 2. He's not there yet, but watch out for what Kawhi does in the years ahead.
Well done, Bill Ryder. Certainly appreciate that. That is a bold statement. I like it. Kawhi Leonard, silent, quiet, but very, very accomplished. Speaking of accomplished, let's get our guys back. Rip Hamilton, NBA All-Star. Raja Bell, NBA first-team defense, and both guys played over a decade in the league. You see the top 15 list. What's your biggest takeaway? Rip, you're first.
Well, first of all, seeing Kareem Abdul-Jabbar not in the number 1 or number 2 slot, I think I didn't have him at the number 1 or 2 slot. But when you look at his stats, the guy played 20 years in the league. He was a 19-time All-Star. You know how hard that is to do when you're 35, 36 years old. He played till he was in his 40s. He was a 15-time All-NBA player, which is first all-time. The guy was unstoppable. Probably had the most unstoppable move that we have ever seen, and that's the sky hook shot. I mean, he played in multiple eras. He's been the best player on his team most of his career until a young Magic Johnson came over there. But he's the guy that I always scratch my head and say, why don't people talk about him being the greatest of all time?
Yeah, Kareem's an interesting one. For me, it would be Wilt. I think, him not cracking the top 5, that's a tough pill for me to swallow for a lot of the reasons you already alluded to. I mean, you talk about a guy who dominated just about whatever he wanted to dominate. And you can't speak about someone doing that without having Wilt in the conversation. Without having him in the conversation. So, I'd have Wilt higher on my list. Obviously we're talking about best players of all time, but what did stick out to me was, guys like maybe Karl Malone, maybe, Charles Barkley, guys that would be cracking like deep into the 13, 14, 15 spot, which you guys talked about a minute ago. It's interesting that none of those guys snuck on there to me, but the biggest takeaway I take is Wilt being lower than I think he should be.
I love a good stat where you go, that can't be true. Wilt Chamberlain averaged 46 minutes a game for his career as a young guy, as an old guy. One year he averaged 48 and a half minutes a game. You only played 48 because he played every second of every game and every overtime, and he never fouled out once in his entire life. That's, to me, Wilt is the guy. Anyway, all right, KD also. Look, we're on the same page. Raja, you and I had the same. Our lists were the closest. KD didn't make the list. I had him on the list. I haven't had a Steph Curry. I say KD. You say what, Raja?
Yeah, I say KD also. Look, I'm a big Steph Curry fan, and I understand that he has kind of revolutionized the game, or he's kind of the driving force behind the revolution of the game and the way they're playing it now. Smaller guards, sniping, wide open floors. But Kevin Durant is an absolute problem. Like he's 6'11", as fluid as any guard in the NBA. He's got a skill set that's really unrivaled. Golden State went out and got him for a reason. They had Steph already. Yes, they had won championships, but they were missing a guy that was absolutely unguardable. Already an MVP in his own right. He's now got championships to bear. I just think Kevin Durant should be on that list. And hopefully he comes back from this Achilles injury and is really able to continue on the same trajectory that he was on pre-injury. But if he does that, I think this is a moot point in a couple of years. It was disappointing not to see him on there right now, though.
All right, Rip, the pride of Coatesville, PA. You grew up in the same era and in the same area as Kobe Bryant. You had Kobe Bryant at 2. Playing the devil's advocate here, he has 1 MVP. Now, Kareem has 6. Russell has 5. Wilt has 4. LeBron has, I don't know how many. He has 1. Why Kobe over those guys? The floor is yours.
Well, first of all, whoever voted and put Kobe at 8 just flat out disrespected him, because I feel like Kobe Bryant is the closest guy to Michael Jordan that we have ever seen. When you look at his stats and you see that, yes, he was an 18-time NBA All-Star. He was a 15-time All-NBA NBA player, tied with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. But when Magic Johnson comes out and says, Kobe Bryant is the best Laker of all time, that means better than him and better than the guy that Magic played with, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And I just think his body of work, you got to understand, a lot of times when you look at his numbers, he's still a top 5 all-time in scoring, but he played with another great player like a Shaquille O'Neal. If he didn't play with Shaquille O'Neal, he probably would be number 1 on the scoring list. He's probably the only guy, and Roger can probably attest to this, the only guy that I competed against in my 14 NBA career that when I would come into the game, I was low-key scared. I wasn't scared of anybody, and the reason why is because Kobe was the type of player that was going to try to kill you when the first minute of play started to play, all the way to the final buzzer went off. You couldn't allow him to get 10 to 12 points in the first quarter because he was going to try to give you 50. He scored 81 points in the game, probably one of the most complete players that we have ever seen in our game of basketball, and I think him being at number 8 is very disrespectful.
That was terrific. Rip, will you be my agent? That's all I want to know. Like, can you advocate for me that way? I mean, just come on. Go in and negotiate with the folks here. I need you. That was terrific. Well done.
It all depends on what's my percentage.
Well, listen, if you negotiate like that, you can have half, as Eddie Murphy used to say, because I'm going to be getting a lot more. Well done. Well done. All right, that was your Geico 15. Geico, 15 minutes could save you 50% or more on car insurance. Visit geico.com to see how much you could save.